So Gray Zone Warfare
Oh, he's gone.
No.
is not going to be for everybody. No game is really. Some people just won't like certain aspects of certain games, and that's okay. For example here, my buddy Moy, he said he would not touch it again for another year plus once they fix everything. This is Moydog here, a milsim guy, a hardcore tactical shooter guy. He isn't going to touch it for another year? If the game isn't for him right now, who's it actually for? Well, let's dive a little deeper and find the answer to that. My name is...
Good to meet you, Tacti.
Tacti is fine.
Tacti.
Thank you for clicking on this video. Today, I want to break this question down. Now, before we dive too deep into it, I want to give you my position. I want to share where I'm at. I've got sort of my biases here. I think the game is for people like me. And while there have been many issues with this pre-alpha test and many difficult design decisions that the devs are going to have to work out, I still see something pretty great for those with similar interests as me, similar time, similar mindsets. So that's where I stand. I like the game, Moy doesn't. Now, while we're on the topic of fixes here, the team has been incredibly quick and open when it comes to communicating issues and fixes. This is from the CEO of Madfinger Games. This is him coming in, communicating directly on X what's going on directly from his account. I just really appreciate the openness here with how they're squashing bugs and how open he is, how quick he is to respond and communicate. That's one of the things I really like about the indie scene and those smaller development teams. They're more open, they're easier to talk to, and it just feels more personable to me. One of the things that has been an issue with this playtest is the AI. They have been incredibly tanky at points, even ones without any armor on and not even a t-shirt, but the CEO here figured out what was going on, communicated it, and now things are going to be fixed. I haven't had a chance to try those yet, but that was a huge issue for the couple days that I've played so far. But honestly, those fixes aren't really things that I'm worried about. Crashes, bugs, that's all part of the process. I don't care much for those. Even frame rate to me right now really doesn't matter that much. The main thing I think that we should all be focused on when it comes to if this game is for you is the general game design. The map, the factions, the gunplay, the movement, the spawns, the missions. All these things are design choices that affect the way the game is played and how accessible it is. These things are much more difficult to alter when you've already got a vision for the game and you've implemented it in this way. If one of these things changes, maybe something else is going to have to change. Maybe you're going to have to change another system in the game. So that's why these things are more important to me. That's why I really don't care about crashes and stuff like that at this point. So let's talk about these systems. Let's talk about how they're implemented right now and what players they're geared toward. We're going to start with the map and the points of interest because one of the main things this game boasts is the 42 kilometers squared map. That's a very large map. Having a map this size sort of begs the question, is it alive? When you've got such a large map, one of the things that can happen is that it feels incredibly empty between the points of interest. In this case, there are areas around the map that can be populated with bandits and a few military personnel, but there's also a big giant irradiated circle in the middle of the map. So this is virtually an unplayable area at the moment, at least for newer players. I know there's going to be systems where you can go into this, but essentially this part of the map is off limits for most of the players. But what about the areas not directly in the red zone? The space between the red zone and the surrounding towns. How alive are they? Unfortunately, I found them to be pretty dead. You'll have the occasional hut, maybe the occasional building where you've got a couple different tangos there, but most of the areas are empty and basically pointless to venture through. This is where some would insert the running simulator thing, whatever. But there's just not a ton to do. There's no real reason to be in these parts. But while I was playing the other day, I started to think about how much this environment reminded me of Far Cry. And so then I remembered how crazy those Far Cry games are when you play them. You can't go more than, 15 minutes without some sort of random encounter happening to spice up the moments, whether that's charged by a bear or getting run up on some roaming patrol in a janky Jeep driving around the road in the middle of the jungle. That kind of stuff really spices up the game. And I would love to see that in Gray Zone Warfare. Just don't forget to add an RPG. Moving into factions though, because that's something that I foresee being a little bit of a problem here. On one hand, the faction system is really cool because it facilitates team play with people that you wouldn't normally play with. I feel like the way they allow 16 players per faction to be on a server sort of promotes the communication between those faction members, and I feel more comfortable talking than if I were to drop into a game of Squad or Reforged or something like that. And as I'm thinking about it, I think it's because you've only got a few allies on this large map of mostly enemies. And I think that promotes a little bit more, I don't know, comfort when you're in your headquarters, comfort when you're around players that you know the entire map is against you guys. I think that's the reason anyway. And so it brings about moments like this.
I don't know
Not
where
do
this
it.
heli's going.
We are going to the bunker quest. You will.
And so this dude named Quest, he takes us all the way to the bunker since he's also recently unlocked the landing zone there, and we all needed it. He then helped us clear it out and was just a really cool and funny guy. It was great to experience how easy it is to communicate between squad members, and I think this allows for a lot more camaraderie and a lot more fun things to happen this way. On the other hand though, I don't know how they're going to allow you to make any more friends in life, because once you choose a faction at this point, you're locked into it. This basically means that if your buddy doesn't pick the same faction as you, maybe picks a different one on accident, you can never squad up with them. I'm interested to see how this plays out or what they do to fix that, because I would assume the game plan is to allow that change somehow, some way, because gamers need friends. For real gamers, get yourself some friends if you haven't. That way all of you can hop into Gray Zone Warfare here, play some Tactical Barbie Operator, grab a few guns, do the tactical movement thing, and ultimately I hope this was a good transition. Because look, if you're hoping to hop into a game with incredibly high time to kill, where you can flee the scene, maybe slide around those corners, plate 3 times, slide around another corner, slide cancel, jump, hit a 360 no-scope from the top of a mountain, this is not going to be it. I don't have the reflexes for that now, and I actually never did. The slower gameplay systems though is something that I can really deal with. It's something that I vibe with, you know? I'm trying way too hard to be cool, which is why I love the most recent iteration of Modern Warfare 2 so much. Slower and more realistic games really get me rowdy, but that also means, in this case, it's only going to take a few bullets to kill you, or at least seriously wound you. And the same goes for most AIs, if that is fixed now anyway. It should only take a few bullets to penetrate their fleshy exterior and take them down. And you're going to be doing that with some incredible looking weapons. I mean, I love these weapon models. I love the animations, especially when it comes to the healing animations. I think those are incredible. The recoil at times can feel a bit too robotic, but that's one of those things that can be smoothed out over time. One of those things I'm not worried about. But the systems involved here really encourage those slower movements, the more precise shooting. It rewards patience and map knowledge and elevation. When you put all this together with some very specific missions and very guided and directed progression, you can have yourself some fun. You know, at least until you get shot and die. But the kicker here is that even when you die, you're not dead.
I'm not dead.
Yeah, he says he's not dead.
Yes, he is. I'm not.
Instead, you respawn at your base, you can grab whatever gear is in your locker, or you can purchase some gear, you can take that little bird back to your team or back to your body, grab all of that gear again, and continue pressing onward. Now, if your body is surrounded, if your team is killed, there's a higher risk you're going to die trying to go back and get your stuff. But what this does, what these systems do, is that they lower the risk during these engagements while still keeping them somewhat meaningful. You obviously don't want to lose your stuff. You obviously don't want to die. You obviously want to complete those missions, but every time you die, you lose a little bit of yourself, or at least you lose that current opportunity in the position that you were at. So those moments are still somewhat meaningful. And that, I think, is the key indicator of who is going to enjoy this game. This game, in my opinion, is like the extraction shooters for dads. Aging gamers like myself, you know, the 25 to 30 years and older, that group, they tend to start shifting toward these more hardcore experiences as we get older. At least I have specifically. But I feel like that's a very common theme. They can't keep up with those movement fiends over there on Call of Duty, so they start drifting to something a little bit more hardcore, a little bit lower time to kill, a little less ADHD. And that's why I think this game is going to be such a big hit for gamers like that. Because this is offering several things that aren't really well fleshed out within that realm. At least not all together as a bundle. You've got modern weapons, you've got co-op missions, you've got a giant open world with realistic graphics and meaningful but casualized engagements. See, most dads don't have a ton of time for a game like Tarkov every night. If you do, maybe you should check in on your wife and kids every now and then. They probably need you. But that leaves room for a game like this, a mission-based looter shooter with a hardcore feel but a more casualized approach. This game, in my opinion, is going to be a very large game. It's taking what the DMZ decided to just throw away and offering an alternative. Do I think it's going to be for every hardcore gamer? Probably not. I think there's a lot of people within this realm that are actually really tired of these unfinished early access buggy games. And I think this is going to start in that realm. So I think there are a lot of gamers that are just fed up with that and they're not going to want to jump into that. And that's perfectly okay too. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but you're allowed to not like games. You're allowed to have a different opinion. Also, you're allowed to be bad at video games, but that's another video. So why did Moy not like this game? If he falls into this realm, he's got several kids now, he's coming up as an aging gamer, I'm not sure how old he is, but why did he not like it? You're gonna have to watch his video for an explanation, because I actually didn't watch it, just haven't had the time to do that. I will link it below. But for dads like me who are relatively busy with a family and are also okay with an occasional bug, I think it'll be really enjoyable. And I think it's because there's not much else like it that's so easily accessible while also being hardcore. I think it's going to be fun. Anyway, what do you guys think? Is this game going to be for you? Have you enjoyed what you've seen? Do you just watch your favorite streamer and see what they think and then go along with what they're thinking? Let me know in the comments down below. Definitely think for yourself though. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Give it a like. Dislike it if you didn't, that's still some engagement for me. Subscribe for more, and until the next one, be bold, be courageous, stay gray.